ហើយ Gas ម៉ាស៊ីនត្រជាក់ឌូផុនរបស់សហរដ្ឋអាមេរិកឈានមកគេនៅក្នុងឧស្សាហកម្មបរិក្ខារត្រជាក់ជាង80ឆ្នាំឌូផុនភាពអស្ចារ្យនៃវិទ្យាសាស្ត្រ
Good evening, Excellency, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome once again to Cambodia Global Dialogue of Southeast Asia TV. Tonight is a big surprise. I didn't expect that such on short notice. I have a very special guest appearance tonight. We're going to talk about something to many Cambodians is still perceived as a traumatized experience, including myself. We have the honor and pleasure to have the producer of The Killing Field, who over the year have changed hat and now is Lord Putnam is now the UK trade envoy, and he happened to be visiting Cambodia, and thanks to the UK embassy we managed to have him on a short notice here. So I don't know what we're going to talk about, but Lord Putnam, David, please welcome to the show.
It's a great pleasure. Yes. Really great to be here.
Well, I mean, I know about The Killing Field. Many of the young Cambodians probably heard about it, but perhaps I like to ask you to say a bit about, you know, yourself and how does it came about that you decide to do in those days the film.
Well, it goes right the way back. My father was a war photographer.
Yes.
I was born in the World War as called a Blitz baby. I was born when the bombs were all falling on London. I didn't meet my father till I was 5 because he was away fighting, and he was a hero for me, fantastic guy. So I think the notion of the hero journalist is something that was very strongly embedded in me. I then grew up loving the movies, not being very good at school, I'm sad to say, but really loving the movies. But for me, movies were American movies. They were cowboy movies, they were musicals, until I saw a French movie called The Battle of Algiers in '66. I would have been 25. And that's when I realized that cinema could be something completely different. And in a sense, a very important sense, The Killing Fields is the son of Battle of Algiers. There's no question that was the big influence. I then had a good, fairly successful career in the film industry, and I'd had a couple of nominated films. Midnight Express was nominated. Then Chariots of Fire won. I had an Oscar. I made a good movie called Local Hero. So it was at a very high point in my career.
Yes.
And I found an article in Time magazine about the reuniting of these two journalists, Schomburg, the American, and Dith Pran, his Cambodian interpreter, and basically, to a degree, his mentor. And I got in touch with him, and took a long 4 years passed.
Is that right?
When I was working and researching and working with a writer, Bruce Robinson, and we eventually conceived and were able to make in Thailand with Roland Joffe the movie, The Killing Fields, and it was without doubt it was the high point of my life professionally. Yes. I was at my best. I was at the right age. I was 42, 43. It would kill me today.
Yes.
We shot for 17 weeks. We moved every single day. So we had to shoot, move. We had to finish every day's work.
Yes.
It was utterly exhausting, but really rewarding. And I think the movie works. It was, as you know, nominated for 7 Academy Awards, won 3.
Yes.
And it was a very good day's work.
Yes. Wow.
And told an extraordinary story.
Yeah, that's quite an experience. And now I understand that in this new Blu-ray digitized world, you have re-digitized it, and so this way the continue on for the younger generation?
Very much so. I mean, it's remained a very successful, popular film. So yes, Warner Brothers have made a 30th anniversary movie. 30
already?
This year's 30th anniversary of the movie.
I think I'm getting old.
Well, I know I'm getting old. So, and they've done a beautiful job, really beautiful job with a 30-page booklet. It's magnificent product, and it'll be going out everywhere. It's launched everywhere in April in the US and in May and June in Europe, and coming here I think in June. I'm very proud of it. But you know what's great about good movies?
Yes.
I had it 2 years ago with the Olympics with Chariots of Fire. Good movies live. They don't go away. They're not like a TV show. I don't mean a TV show like yours, but a TV drama show, which is gone, and then next week there's another one, next week there's another one. Movies do hang around. They hang around in people's imagination.
Yes.
So, for example, Hang Noor, who was a very good friend of mine,
Yes.
who was tragically killed in Los Angeles, he will live forever. I mean, he is an immortal character, I think, in Cambodian history, as indeed Pran himself was. Both are now no longer with us.
He died also?
This prawn died of cancer about 4 years ago.
Oh, my. Wow, it's 30 years is a long time, and you know, 1975, I was 15 years old, and I missed the flight because my mom wanted me to go to France. I have a scholarship to go to France, but my birthday is on the 16th of April. And I told Mom I want to have my last birthday party in Cambodia. And of course, the collapse is on the 17th, and the Khmer Rouge capture the airport. So I end up spending my next 4 years in the killing field as well. So I must say, in all honesty, when the movie came out, I was a refugee in the U.S. already, and I watched once. Never have the courage to watch it again. But perhaps 30 years past, maybe it's good to go back memory lane a bit. My kids grown up, we talk a lot about it. And perhaps maybe with the Blu-ray, we're going to make it as a family movie. Bring fans and look back history in different perspective, you know. I
think it's worthwhile. Also, because I'm teaching a class later on today on media studies.
Yes.
What's interesting is I'm now able to look at it and even look at some of the material that wasn't in the original film, but that was shot.
Yes.
And there's one scene in particular that I love, a very, very important scene that we took out for perfectly good dramatic reasons. The film was too long. But looking back at that scene now, it's politically and socially very powerful scene.
Wow.
Because it's arrival of the Vietnamese, of the Khmer Rouge flee back into the jungle, and you see Hang Nor in his voiceover talks about things that have got much easier. People are now being fed. Families are beginning to be reunited. You see this physically. So in hindsight, I suppose if ever I had thought honestly that I'd be sitting in a studio with you today having this conversation, we would never have taken this scene out.
Yeah.
So I'm feeling not like the smartest guy in the world.
Yeah. But you know, I think your film have brought this tragedy to the world scene, and I think it's important that the world knows. And as you know, currently we have the Khmer Rouge trial, which is about international law. It's about you know, how the world would know that what happened in Cambodia should not happen in other places in the world, and that those responsible should be brought to justice. So it's quite a traumatized experience. But I'm glad you eternalize Cambodia in that sense, you know. But anyway, what brings you to Cambodia?
I'm here as the Prime Minister's personal trade envoy. I say trade and cultural envoy because half of what I do at least is cultural, but trade envoy. And the whole purpose of it is to try and build trust and relationships over a number of years with the Southeast Asian countries. I'm responsible for Vietnam, Cambodia, Laos and Myanmar. So it's a big brief. Roughly at the moment we're looking at 2 visits each year.
Okay.
And this is, I'm fortunate, this is my first visit with this hat on to Cambodia, but I've made a couple of trips to Vietnam, 3 to Myanmar. So we're getting there. And I think, look, I've been coming to Asia, which frightens me to even say this, for 48 years. First came, I was 25 years old, 1966. Okay. I know better than most people how the relationships in this part of the world are about friendships, trust and relationships. So I've been trying to make that argument in the UK for many, many years, that there are no, it's not like the US. I know I have many, many friends in the US. US, you pick up relationships, you drop relationships, you have a relationship with a company, that company goes, and you make a relationship with another company. It doesn't work that way. I had a Japanese partner for well over 20 years. And I'm trying to bring exactly that seriousness of intent and belief in trusting relationships to this job. If I succeed, then trade and relationships between UK and Cambodia will flourish. If I fail, I shall probably get my knuckles rapped by the Prime Minister and never be seen again.
Putnam ធំដោយ Gas ម៉ាស៊ីនត្រជាក់ ឌូផុន របស់សហរដ្ឋអាមេរិក ឈានមកគេនៅក្នុងឧស្សាហកម្មបរិក្ខារត្រជាក់ជាង 80 ឆ្នាំ ឌូផុន ភាពអស្ចារ្យនៃវិទ្យាសាស្ត្រ
No, I think you for a someone who knows the region for 48 years, I think you understand very well the cultural dimension. And I think at the end of the day, you know, we happen to be in the region, thank God, that is booming, is moving. In a couple of years, we're going to be part of the larger ASEAN economic community. And it's interesting because in this ASEAN community, we're talking about three pillars. I think within the government, we tend to think as three separate pillars. The political security pillar, which is run pretty much by people in the foreign service. The economic community pillar, which is more trade, the finance people. And then sort of a bit neglected, you know, second cousin, you know, the third pillar, which I don't agree that it should be treated as a sort of like a not so dynamic pillar, which is the social cultural pillar. I think it should be the other way around. I think we should put more focus on the social cultural pillar as part of community building, and then that's from that relationship, from that cultural understanding, that you're able to build the trust, and from trust, that's how you get the political understanding, you know, and get trade going, that sort of thing. But I can relate to how you look at your job, you know, at this in this part of the world we call it CLMV, right?
Yep.
Cambodia, Laos, Myanmar, and Vietnam. Myanmar is booming.
Yes, it is.
Yes.
It has challenges, frankly, that
Yes.
you've already managed to overcome, and
Yes.
I don't think the road ahead is completely smooth for Myanmar. But you know, there's two things to say about the cultural world. In the UK, when I started in politics, in the political period of my career, which is 95, 96, the cultural industries, as we now define them, were regarded as being a little less than 3% of GDP.
Really?
Around 3%. Okay. And none of us argued that it should be much more. Today, it's over 7%, around 7.25%. Employs 1.5 million people. So culture is no longer a nice to have.
Yes,
it's not a thing that you do as a hobby after school.
Yes.
It actually is a fundamental pillar of GDP.
Yeah.
The other thing it does is it binds people and it binds their values.
Yes.
So in fact, it is a very, very good nation-building component.
And culture, there's a whole dimension of the whole creative industry that is based on culture.
Oh, very much so. And also, you know, if you're a young person, 18, 19, 20, what do you really want to do in your life?
Yes.
If you don't want to be a rock and roll artist or a movie maker, you want to work in these fields. You want to work in the digital field. You want to work manipulating images, dealing in images.
Yes.
Why wouldn't you? So I think there's a different kind of pressure for the cultural world to actually assert itself and be made more important. The other thing I'd say, which is very important to me, because I've worked in this region as long as I have, I think I came to understand better than a lot of people how important stability is as a word. You know, we use stability in Europe, and we sort of take it for granted, or we use it in the US. The US doesn't, I don't think, even think about stability in a serious sense. Here, stability is the bedrock on which everything becomes built. And certainly I'm aware that if you're a British business wanting to open up in Cambodia and in the region, you need to know you're moving into a stable environment.
Yes,
Similarly, the environment itself needs to feel that it is stable. So this word stability, I hammer it home as much as I can in the UK. Say, look, it's something we don't take nearly as seriously as is taken in Asia, and it is fundamental to this relationship.
Well, David, you know, you cover Cambodia from a very dramatized, you know, moment in time of our history, and then now you come back. 8 years ago you was here. Now you come back. You see the whole, you know, effervescence, this whole bubbling effect that the economy is moving, the entrepreneurial spirit and everything. Sometimes, you know, when I take my kids to school with my wife in the morning, we would say, you know, I wonder what have the government done, you know, to stimulate all that. And sometimes it's amazing the answer you get from your wife. She said, you know what, they brought us peace. And with peace, leave us alone, let us work. I thought there is some merit in that wise statement.
There's a scene I use when I'm teaching did you ever see a movie Life of Brian?
No.
Okay, try to see it.
Yes.
There's one scene where this group of Palestinians who are trying to get rid of the Romans. This is set during the Roman period. And John Cleese, who's a wonderful actor, is saying to his followers, after all, what did the Romans ever do for us? And one of them says, roads. Oh, yes, roads, yes, yes. And then they go through sanitation. Oh, yeah, sanitation. So, and then in the end, one of them says, peace. Oh, yeah, he says, I remember what it was like before the Romans. It was terrible here.
Yes.
And it's a fantastic scene. I use it to try and explain to British filmmakers, when they complain about Hollywood.
Yes.
Hollywood's a mix, not such a bad thing. It's, most of our jobs come.
Yes.
But I think, I don't know, I'm an old man now. I was 73 last week.
Well, happy belated birthday.
Thank you very much. I was in Luang Prabang for my birthday. It was very nice. And you become so familiar with these things. And I say I've been in the region so long now that the things that I know are important here, trying to take that message home sometimes tough.
Yes, yes. What's your, coming back now in the region after all this year, what do you see the region?
I think it's going through extraordinary transition. I think I've been saying to the Vietnamese, and I would say it to you definitely, and to Laotians, it's very, very important to keep in touch with what your essence is. I think these are remarkable cultures, very special cultures.
Yes.
And I think it's important to keep reminding yourselves what is special about being Cambodian.
Yes.
And hang on to those symbols and those values as long as you possibly can. Because I think the big danger of globalized society is not about globalized trade, it's about globalized identity.
Yes.
And if you become a global identity, I think you lose all sense of who you are or why you are. And all of a sudden, what do you tell your kids? What do you tell I've got 3 grandchildren. What do I tell them about who they are? What's important in their lives?
Putnam ធំដោយ ហ្គាសម៉ាស៊ីនត្រជាក់ឌូផុនរបស់សហរដ្ឋអាមេរិកឈានមកគេនៅក្នុងឧស្សាហកម្មបរិក្ខារត្រជាក់ជាង 80 ឆ្នាំ ឌូផុន ភាពអស្ចារ្យនៃវិទ្យាសាស្ត្រ
I cannot help but to mention, my God, I mean, when this Gangnam Style came about, I told my daughter, it looks fine, but, come on, but it's true. I mean, it's cultural identity is so important, particularly for Cambodia, where we went through such a historical distortion where the nation almost disappeared. And over this year, I feel that what is missing in many of the Cambodian is the appreciation of its own identity, our own nation. Those who are more mature now, we start to see, but who are we per se? Because when you have this disruption, and then you restart from scratch, you don't have anything to base with. And I always, I'm a lawyer, David, and we're struggling with this civil law, which is our tradition during the French protectorate, and now with this modernized, Anglo-Saxon, ASEAN influences, modern treaty and convention. But then the problem is that, certain of the old judges or the lawyers say, look, but we are part of the civil law code, right? And then why this thing doesn't work? Why that thing doesn't work? I say, you know what? It's nothing wrong with the system. It happened, it worked in France, it worked in other countries. But the problem in Cambodia is because we have certainly that abyss that destroy everything. And then you try to go back to that historical roots, and then suddenly you're lost. Because you have nothing else to go further. So it's very difficult for, well, I would say people at my age, because it's sort of like you are adult already when the killing field took place. Then you went through refugee life, restarting life in the U.S., everything. Coming back, you see a country rebuilding. It's a lot of appreciation for people, I think, of my generation. But unfortunately, the younger, the post-boom, after the peace accord came into place, I think we still have to instill them that, look, you got to learn history. This is important.
Well, I just say really 2 things. One is, I remember a conversation I had with Sidney Schamberg.
Yes.
Where we talked about what had happened and the lead up to it, because he'd been in this country for a few years beforehand. And he'd been a foreign correspondent for the New York Times all over the world.
Yes.
And he said of all the countries he lived in, this was the one that he felt least likely for these events to occur. least likely. He said it was a wonderful country to be living in. People liked each other. He said he'd been in many countries which were difficult. So first of all, I learned a lesson from that about the sheer fragility of things. You can think you've got something taped, and it really is. So that was Sydney's reaction. The other is, you mentioned 8 years ago I was president of UNICEF, and I came here. The best morning, one of the great mornings of my life, I spent with a group of young Cambodian law graduates. They just graduated. And we had a fantastic conversation. It was the best conversation I ever had about why the rule of law had to work, why judges have to be honest. And what I see it in the UK, that in the end, a life under the rule of law where you're going to be treated equally, all people are treated equally, under the same laws by justices and judges who administer the law, is actually without that you have nothing. With that you can build anything. And I just remember these really inspiring guys. I mean, there may be 20 of them. I thought, this country is going to be all right, because you've got 20 of those people. And they were, in those days, they were probably 28, 29 years old. Today they'd be 44, 45. They were great. No, they wouldn't. They'd be about 40. They were great. And I came away from that meeting thinking, it's all going to be all right, Sydney. You were right, this is a good country.
You know, David, I did my PhD in law, but the thesis is role of law, legal institution in Cambodia economic development. And I come to that same conclusion as you say, that we need this basis, this solid bedrock as the basis of everything. With peace, compounded with the effect of this rule of law, everything else can be built upon. And I'm just happy to see that now we are about to join ASEAN, where more and more competition, to attract foreign direct investment, to attract business. It's all based on that confidence. Will the investor feel confident to put the money in a country, to enter into a joint venture with a local partner? It's all about that rule of law.
Well, as a very old man, I've come to value the word trust as the most important word in the English language.
Yes. So, we are coming to the end of the show, but I sure would want to have a few last words of you for the Cambodian, for the audience. And I think there'll be something that they will remember, after you go back to UK.
I'd say, this has been a great country. It will be a great country. And all the Cambodians that I worked with on the killing fields, and there were a great number of them, were sensational people. And they gave up a huge chunk of their lives. In the case of Hang Naw, in a way, he gave up his life to make sure that the message of those years was got across. They were massively proud of the film. And I think the image of Hang, you've probably got a still, that image of Hang holding his Oscar and declaring it as being on behalf of all Cambodian people, may be the proudest moment of my life.
Well, David, thank you so much on behalf of the audience and the studio. Let me just say thank you for taking the time to come and share this few minutes with us, with the Cambodian. I think now they can put a face, who is the person who have taken the Cambodia tragedy and make the world known about it. And I think we all should be thankful for your work, for your idealism. And 30 years later, we are still going through this period of time. I think for me, the day the Khmer Rouge trial come to closure, that will be the day that Cambodia will flip a page of history. And the sooner the better. I think we need to feel that sense of normalcy. And it's important, and we need to feel that the society is no more traumatized. It's not an easy feeling, for someone like myself and for many others who've gone through that. So on that note, I want to say thank you, David.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Pleasure.
Well, I really hate these 30 minutes because you barely get started and you are at the end already. But at least we have captured this moment, and I'm going to upload all this on YouTube. So it will stay there for the new, younger generation, 10, 20, 30, 50 years down the road. Hopefully the internet is still there. And those who never been through, who are lucky not to have to gone through the killing field, or those who are born after the killing field, they should make the time, take the time take the family time to watch it together and try to understand what happened, at least from a film perspective. But I think it's important that we come to terms what happened to our country, and we have to move on. But it should not be forgotten. So on that note, good night.